I was in Berlin for an art residency when my parents sold my studio to fund my brother's startup. When I returned, scaffolding wrapped the building like a cage and my walls were already coming apart. "You can paint anywhere," my mother said. I smiled. "What's funny?" they snapped. I said quietly, "The studio you sold was actually..." And that's when they started screaming down my name is Addison.
I'm 31.
For the last decade, my entire world lived inside a third-floor loft in an old brick factory that still carried the ghost of machine oil and rain on metal. The city called it up and coming, called it home, because it wasn't just walls. It was the only place that ever felt like mine. My grandpa built every inch of that studio with his own hands after my grandmother passed. My parents were always too busy chasing real success to raise me, so grandpa stepped in. He taught me how to mix paint until the color sang. He taught me that light changes everything if you wait for it. And most importantly, he taught me that silence can be louder than any scream if you know exactly when to use it. When he died, the will was crystal clear. The loft and everything he had poured into it went to me. Not because it was valuable back then, but because it was the one thing in our family that no one could borrow, rent, or repurpose without my say-so. My brother Samuel was the golden child. The future. The one with the vision. Every family dinner was a highlight reel of Samuel's next big idea. I was the artsy one. The hobby. The daughter who was cute when she stayed quiet and useful when she helped. The arrangement was unspoken but ironclad. I kept my head down, paid my own way, and never asked for the spotlight. Until Berlin. 3 months away from every text that started with Samuel needs. 3 months where no one needed me to be practical. I painted until my shoulders burned and my soul felt wide open. I finally started the series I've been terrified of for years, pieces about blood that feels like debt, about rooms that remember who you really are. I came home with charcoal dust under my nails and the first real hope I'd felt in years. The taxi rounded the corner and my stomach dropped through the floor. Scaffolding. Yellow netting flapping like warning flags. A dumpster already half full with chunks of my old drywall and splintered oak flooring. Men in hard hats moved like they owned the sidewalk. The front door was wedged open with a paint bucket. Inside, the hallway smelled like fresh destruction. Plaster dust, cut metal, and something sharper. The death of 20 years of memories. I ran up the stairs 2 at a time. Unit 3C. My door was gone. Just a raw opening. A contractor looked up from his tablet. "Ma'am, this area is active. You can't." "I live here," I said, voice cracking. "This is my studio." He checked his screen. 3C was part of the package sale. Contents moved to storage yesterday. New owners started demo at sunrise. New owners. My phone started buzzing before I could even process the words. "Mom." I answered on speaker because my hands were shaking too hard to hold it to my ear. "Addison, don't be dramatic." Her voice was bright, the way it always got when she was about to justify something unforgivable. "We made a business decision. Samuel's round was closing. He needed collateral. You can paint anywhere." I stared at the hole where my grandfather's hand-built bookshelves used to be. "You sold my home," I whispered. Dad jumped on the line. "It was an investment for the family. Samuel's future. You're flexible. You'll bounce back." Samuel's laugh drifted through the background. That sound punched me harder than any scream ever could. I hung up. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was the first time in my life I heard my own heartbeat like a war drum. That night I didn't sleep. I called Maya, the lawyer I'd met at an art gala who collected both paintings and courtroom victories. She answered on the second ring. "Send me everything," she said. "Deed, texts, emails, the sale contract. And Addison? Do not speak to them without me." The next morning in her office she spread the documents across the table like a crime scene. Her finger stopped on one page and she actually smiled. The cold kind that means someone is about to get destroyed. "They made a mistake," she said quietly. "A big one." I leaned forward. "What kind?" "Not just forgery, though they definitely forged your signature on the release form. Look at this." She slid Grandpa's original will toward me. "He didn't just leave you the loft. He created an irrevocable artistic legacy covenant. The interior build-out, the custom fixtures, the airspace rights, and every improvement he made are protected under a separate perpetual trust. The building shell could be sold. The common areas could be sold. But the soul of the studio, the part that actually matters, was never theirs to transfer. They sold something they didn't own. I felt the floor tilt. So the contract is defective on its face, Maya finished. They can't convey what they never legally held. And that forged letter they attached calling you unstable and incapable? That's fraud with intent. We're filing an emergency stop work order today. By afternoon, the site was crawling with lawyers. My mother had called 14 times. I let every single one ring out. 2 days later, they showed up at my temporary rental like they were coming to fire an employee. Mom breezed in without knocking. Dad hovered. Samuel stood in the doorway checking his watch like my pain was wasting his precious time. You look exhausted, Mom said, as if that was the real problem. You forged my name, I answered. Samuel rolled his eyes. It was a signature on a family document. We were trying to help the family. The family, I repeated. Which apparently doesn't include me. Mom's voice went syrupy. You can paint anywhere, sweetheart. This is temporary. Samuel's investors are getting nervous. Just drop the injunction and we'll find you something nicer. I looked at the three of them and felt something click into place like a lock I didn't know existed. Maya had told me exactly what to do next. We met at the site the following morning under the scaffolding. The wind rattled the netting like it was trying to warn them. Mom folded her arms, staring at the building like it had personally offended her. Samuel's eyes were bloodshot from stress, not guilt. Just call this off, he snapped. My runway is disappearing. I need this money freed up. Mom stepped closer. Stop being so sentimental. You can paint anywhere. I smiled. Samuel's voice cracked with rage. What the hell is so funny? I let the silence stretch exactly the way Grandpa taught me. Then I said it soft and steady. The studio you sold was actually... Maya stepped forward with the folder and held up the single page that mattered. Your parents didn't sell what they think they sold, she said calmly. The interior artistic legacy covenant is irrevocable. The fixtures, the build-out, the airspace rights, none of it transferred. That trust still belongs solely to Addison. Every hammer they've swung since yesterday has been destroying property they do not own. The air went still. Samuel's face drained white. Mom laughed, a brittle, ugly sound. That's ridiculous. It's one studio. It's protected, Maya said. And if your crew keeps working, we add trespass, conversion, and intentional destruction of trust assets. Criminal territory. Dad's voice came out small for the first time in my life. Addison, we didn't know. You didn't care enough to check, I answered. And that's when the screaming started. Mom first, raw, furious, like volume could erase the law. You're doing this out of jealousy. You've always been jealous of your brother. Samuel grabbed his hair, voice breaking into panic. Fix it. Addison, please. Call them off. My investors are pulling out. I can't lose everything. He stepped toward me, wild-eyed. You owe me. You always help. This is my life. Mom jabbed a finger at my chest. You're selfish. You're ruining your own family. I didn't move. I didn't answer. I just let their words echo off the scaffolding and into the ears of every worker, every site manager, every developer rep who had quietly gathered to watch the show. Maya's voice stayed ice-cold. Any further contact goes through my office. One more approach and we add harassment charges. The forgery is already with the DA. The word frozen landed like a judge's gavel. Work stopped mid-swing. That afternoon I drove to the storage unit on the edge of town. Unit 48B. The clerk slid me the key without looking up. Inside, my life was stacked in sad cardboard towers. Grandpa's old easel leaned against a stranger's broken headboard. His wooden palette still had dried ultramarine in the corner from the last painting he ever finished. I put my hand on the wood and finally let the tears come. Not the pretty kind. The ugly, choking kind that had been waiting since the day I saw that dumpstered my phone rang. Mom again. This time I answered. Maya is threatening us with criminal charges, she hissed. You forged my name, I said simply. We were trying to save your brother. By selling me. A long pause. Then the weaponized softness. Honey, you're taking this too far. I looked at the palette in my hands. Too far was the day you decided my entire existence was collateral. Samuel grabbed the phone, frantic. Addison, please. Just sign one paper. Tell them it's fine. I'll make it up to you, I swear. Make it up with what? I asked. Another lie? He started crying. Real tears this time. I can't lose everything. I hung up. The hearing. The judge didn't need theatrics. Maya laid out the covenant, the forged documents, the defamatory letter, the timeline that proved they rushed the sale to meet Samuel's deadline. Every lie they told the court came back colder than the one before. When the stop work order was granted and the sale declared defective, Samuel actually collapsed into a chair like someone had cut his strings. Outside the courthouse, Mom tried one last time. She stepped in front of me, eyes shining with the same tears she used to weaponize when I was little. You're doing this because you hate us, she whispered. I looked at her for a long second. Really looked? No, I said. I'm doing this because I finally love myself more than your approval. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Then her face twisted into something ugly and familiar. You always had to be so dramatic, she spat, turning away. A few weeks later the sale was unwound. The developer kept the shell project, but the covenant stayed exactly where Grandpa had put it, with me. Samuel's investors vanished. My parents started learning the language of consequences for the first time. And the city, through the heritage program Grandpa had quietly set up years earlier, offered me stewardship of the space. Not just ownership. Responsibility. A key that no one could ever take again. The first time I walked back into the loft, the walls were scarred and the floor was bare. Dust floated in the exact same light Grandpa used to chase across those tall windows. I stood in the middle of the wreckage and waited for the grief to swallow me whole. It never came. Instead, I felt something quieter and stronger. They hadn't destroyed my life. They had only destroyed the version where I kept paying to be loved. I pulled a fresh stick of charcoal from my bag. My fingers didn't shake. I walked to the one untouched panel of drywall and drew the first line, dark, certain, unapologetic. They tried to turn this place into capital. I turned it back into meaning. And if there's one thing I want you to remember from all of this, it's this. The moment your family starts seeing you as a resource instead of a person, they stop being family the second you stop being useful. That moment hurts like hell, until you realize it's also the exact moment you finally start belonging to yourself. What would you do if your own parents sold the only home your grandpa ever left you? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one.